at 5 o'clock. Welcome everybody to the Municipal Planning Commission meeting of Wednesday, July 7th. So we have an agenda ahead of us here. It's relatively short and straightforward. Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda? Not then, Member Gullickson.
I will move the agenda as presented.
Let's move that we adopt the agenda as presented. All those in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Next, we have the minutes from the June 2nd, 2021 meeting. We had a chance to review those. Are there any errors or omissions?
Should review June 16th.
June 16th. It does say so on, it's just the agenda is incorrect. So my apologies, June 16th. So yes, make sure you're reading the right minute. I'm sure you are.
The minutes are right.
Yeah.
Well, seeing no discrepancies, I'll move to accept the minutes as presented.
Okay. So Member Gullickson has moved that the minutes be adopted as presented. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Development Officer Crystal Chappelle to present these.
Sure. Just to start, we are discussing an application for a single-family dwelling and industrial shop. Initially, there was a height variance request for the shop to be slightly taller than the house, and after discussion, we agreed that the shop would be no taller than the house. So we're striking that from this. Application has been received for a detached dwelling with a front yard setback variance of 5 feet and 6 years, which is 60%, and an industrial shop. And with the discretionary warehousing occupancy as the industrial component to be developed at 4306 45th Street, Block 23, Block 1, Plan 121106. So RLI, which is residential light industrial. Neighboring property consultations were sent out to neighbors within 16 years of the subject site. 10 property owners were notified. At the time of writing this report, the response to received in opposition of the application has been received in support. Summary: concerns from the neighbors spoke to all of the setbacks, proximity to existing buildings, potential damage to trees, and incurred costs to the owners of the trees should damages occur. Lot grading, accessory building height, and at the time of writing this report, staff intended to contact concerned neighbors, and we did have an opportunity to meet on site to discuss some of these concerns. But those details did not make it into this report. The comments received in support of the application stated that the owners are trying to make the best use of their site. With respect to lot coverage, the purpose of the residential light industrial district is to provide an area for residential development in combination with limited light industrial uses. For this reason, the front and side yard setback requirements are greater than those of typical residential districts. Lot coverage requirements and allowances overlap among the residential and industrial uses. The purpose of this overlap is to ensure acceptable proportions of the site being allocated toward the residential and industrial or commercial uses. The minimum residential component of any RLI parcel is 25% of the parcel area. This includes all amenities related to the residence, including parking and landscaping. Subject site covers 2,732 square meters. Therefore, 25% of that would be 683 square meters. Proposed house is 195 square meters. Amenities related to the residence include all of the front yard and a portion of the proposed driveway, as well as the entire backyard. This encompasses all over 50% of the site, which exceeds the minimum residential proportion. The maximum industrial or commercial component of this parcel is up to 50%. This includes any outside storage, driveways, or buildings. No outside storage is being proposed. The proposed shop includes the covered overhanging roof structure, which is a total of 334.5 square meters. The proposed driveway from the road is estimated 400 square meters. We have received some revised drawings over the exact size of the driveway after we need to, but staff is of the opinion that they're well within the allowable. Total area allocated to the industrial component is around 30% of the site, which is well below 50%. The area required for landscaping, screening, driveways, and buffering is to cover a minimum of 25% of the parcel area. With overlapping uses, the landscape area can be determined by combining the footprints of the proposed buildings and subtracting from the overall site area. Combined footprint areas of the house and the shop is 530 square meters. The overall site area is 2,732 square meters. Therefore, the landscape area would cover roughly 80% of the site. Get into the mathematics of that after as well. Subject parcel was recently subdivided from the remainder parcel to the south, receiving variances to the minimum width and depth of an RLI lot. September 2nd, 2020. As a result, the 2,732 square meter subject parcel is noticeably smaller than the average 4,108 square meter parcels seen in this neighborhood. Well, you can see this is a scale of 1 to 2,500. It shows you the overall neighborhood, and get an idea of how large the parcels are, and the subject site is roughly half the size of the end. In an attempt to maintain symmetry between the proposed house and the existing two adjacent lots, zoom in to 1 to 500. Symmetry being trying to place the proposed house halfway between the distances between the house to the south and the one to the north. In an attempt to maintain that symmetry between the proposed house and the existing adjacent houses, the applicant is proposing a south side yard setback to both adjacent. The neighbor to the south is in support of the setback variance and has submitted a letter in support saying that the owners are trying to make the best use of their lot. Proposed front yard setback is 10 meters in order to accommodate a triple story garage. Best there. Staff is of the opinion that the minimum 15 meter front yard setback should be adhered to, as the proposed projection would be highly noticeable in a neighborhood where the majority of the homes along the west side of the street are set back over 20 meters. Staff recommend either shifting the proposed footprint west by 5 meters or reducing the width of the proposed attached garage by 5 meters, which would bring the setback to an acceptable 15 meters from the front property line. So we've gone ahead and tried to get a good look at what the existing footprints like in the building. So this is the quick layer of our GIS system, which shows the existing shops that are located in the area. And this is rough, it's not precise, but it is clear that most of the residential buildings are set back a bit further than 15 years. The industrial shop is considered to be a permitted use accessory residential building. The definition in the land use bylaw is vague. However, section 9.2 describes rules that are to be applied to accessory residential buildings. Section 9.2CI specifically exempts accessory residential buildings from typical building massing and allowable footprint areas for the RLI district in order to allow for these larger industrial shops. Section 9.2F does not exempt accessory residential buildings in the RLI from the 0.9 meter setback variance. Their setback allowance, therefore, staff interpret a minimum of 0.9 meters to be permitted side yard setback for the shop. The shop is proposed to be set back 3 meters from the north property boundary and 9.75 meters from the rear property boundary. In this instance, a minimum rear yard setback of 9.5 meters will be required, as the site development will include relocation of an existing utility corridor, which requires 9.5 meters for the related easements. With regard to building height, I will not discuss that because it's not part of the application anymore. Respect to the utility right of way, the applicants will be required to relocate some services. The proposed shop footprint overlies the existing right of way, which is currently used for both power and municipal utilities serving the parcel to the south. From that, I can show the existing right of way plan. Reverse this parallel to your property value. Applicant will be required to initiate the process of relocating these utility vendor accompanying right of ways for the site. No development shall occur until the new easement has been properly registered with land office. There's an existing 3-meter right of way on the site which currently is not protecting any utilities. Fortis Alberta has agreed to locate their underground services into this right of way to provide power to the adjacent lot to the south. City's utilities and engineering departments have agreed that a 6.5-meter utility right of way would be sufficient for the required water and sanitary services to the lot. Landowners on the subject site will be required to submit an independent servicing plan to the satisfaction of the city's utilities and engineering departments. Service connections are not assembled by the city. All work from the balance for property boundaries shall be installed by an accredited company. Respect to industrial development on the site, warehousing is a discretionary industrial use in the RLI district. Warehousing means a facility for the indoor storage of goods and merchandise, excluding dangerous or hazardous materials, derelict vehicles thereof, or any waste material, and may include offices related to the administration of the warehouse facility, a showroom, and or retail sale of goods for the warehouse as accessory uses. The proposed accessory residential building would function as a warehouse, which may provide storage of goods and merchandise if needed from the landowner's existing industrial business, which is located also. Section 920.3 on supplementary regulations requires that the residential and the industrial developments are grouped together and cannot exist singularly. Residential use is to be developed first, and changes in the industrial use would require a new permit. Staff is of the opinion that the RLI district provides opportunities for light industrial business owners, and this bylaw does not appear to require income generating business to function on these premises. Therefore, staff are in support of the proposed use of the shop. Staff supports the application and recommends approval of the proposed development subject to the following conditions. We have received additional comments from an adjacent landowner that have been included at the back of the report. I also have included that information into the slideshow and chairperson allow for an opportunity to speak.
Yes, that would be fine.
That concludes my.
So yeah, just to verify then, all of the submitted responses as far as adjacent landowners, et cetera, have all been included in this printed package. Have members had a chance to see all of the feedback, or would you wish to have a few minutes just to review them?
I like
A few minutes? We'll just take a few minutes then just to review what's been included in here.
Crystal, what is the correct address?
Looking at that, there's two legal descriptions listed here.
Yeah,
Jen has just gotten the file, and so it is lot 23, we'll just have the owner confirm this too, lot 23, block 1, plan 212-037.
212, 212, and then what was the rest of it?
279.
437. And is the address 4306 or is it 4310?
Yes.
This is 4310 on this plan, right? That's it, but it is 4306, so when we.
Yeah.
There was, we didn't know it was.
No rush, take as much time as you want. Just let me know when you have. Okay. All right, so we do have the applicant present, is that correct? Okay, is there anything that you wish to add that you don't feel was covered in the presentation?
At this point.
And you are aware of the conditions that are outlined as part of the permit application? All right, I would invite then members of the commission to ask questions, either to administration or potentially to the permit application. Yes.
Thank you, Chair Hibbs. I just have a question regarding the trees. Do we know what property line, are they on the property line, the trees? So they kind of both sides? So, okay, that was one of my questions. The other question was, is there access to the back on this property? They allowed?
It would be allowed, but it's not desired.
Not proposed right at the time, but they would be allowed back access to the shop if they needed to. Those are the two questions I had so far.
From what I'm seeing, the distances are accommodated for the most part in the conditions the city's set out, requesting the adjustments to the additional 15 meters at the front, right? That's in your conditions, like the very first condition, where we're showing 10 on the drawing.
You're not in support of the 10-meter front yard setback, and the bylaw
Correct.
requires 50.
And then also on the north boundary, requesting 5 meters. Also in number 1.
Maybe to the south side.
Yeah, either moving it south or removing part of the building.
Yeah, we thought there might be an either or solution where the triple car garage could be either reduced inside or the whole footprint of the building could be shifted west by 5 meters to achieve that 15-meter front yard setback.
Not used to having so many graphics for
Too many drawings. I'll have, can I do another?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, sorry, Member Galaxy, question?
Thank you, Chair Hibbs. I'd just like to say that I went and looked at the site today and checked it out and looked at the property. It is, in comparison to all the other properties in the area, it's considerably smaller, and we know that. But I do feel that the property needs to be set back a little bit farther. And has there been any consideration from yourselves regarding access from the back to the property?
There is a big hydro pole up there with cable.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. Yeah, Fortis has got their,
Yeah.
is Fortis making any changes there though with
No,
servicing?
Oh, they will be moving their line to, allow within our
Okay.
16 meter anyway.
So you're restricted to what you can do in the back because of that,
I
that post and the anchor holding it in place. Okay, that makes sense to me. I do have concern with the front as far as the setback, because I do believe that will, look different than the rest of the houses. The side yard, when I looked at that, I think that a reasonable, and I think in here you have 5 meters is what you're proposing, is that correct?
For.
Side yard, no, you're 3 meters on the shop, right?
Yes.
Okay, I think that 9 meters or the normal would be way too much. You can't do it, for sure. But the 3 meters might be too close to the other properties in comparison to the other lots within the area. So my thought process would be something.
Just interrupt you there. The actual allowance is 6 meters, not 9. So we're just
Oh, I thought it was a 9 meter setback.
not as 9. Well, that's from the very back of the property.
Back.
6 is from the side.
6 on the side lot, everybody? Oh, right.
That's the normal.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So I still think that it would be reasonable to get in between that. I don't know how far would you have to slide the shop? You're building the house, Leon, is that right?
Yeah.
So how far would you have to slide the shop up to meet that requirement?
Are you talking about from the north or?
From the north side, like if you had got to say, like you're splitting it in half now, well, say you got to 4.5 or something meters. How far up would you have to slide the shop? To the east to meet the requirements. Because otherwise, I'm concerned that if you come in from because you come in from the east, you're compressing that yard area.
further.
Yeah, and you come in from the west, you're going to compress your yard area. And I'm concerned that, it's going to tighten it up a little, you could tighten it up by 6-7 meters, right? And I don't know if that's reasonable or not, but I would like to see, personally, as one of the members, I'd like to see that expanded a little bit, not to the full 6 meters. But to help get some separation from that side. I don't think there's any concern on the other side, on the east side or on the south side, because there's such a large setback from the existing buildings that are there. But the other side, I do believe it would be nice to have a little bit more. Because when you drive down and see the other houses, they all have that large setback. So this would match better
You're talking the setback.
from the north side. I don't mind you 2.4 on the south side, because I mean, Chuck's house is so far over, it's not a concern. It's the north side that I have a little bit of a concern with the shop.
Yeah, it is. I mean, 6 meters, I think it's good for those big lots. But, like on a normal city lot, we're only looking at like 1.5 meters for side yards. And you can actually put your garage 3 feet, you can do it 1 meter from our. So I think 3 meters, the tree limbs are not going to grow 10 feet. They could, but I don't think that moving the shop any further away away from the trees is gonna really change anything.
Yeah, I agree with you, Leon, on that, as far as the setbacks and so on. But there's a different, to me, there's a different feel for that subdivision than a regular subdivision. I mean, I have 10 feet between my neighbor and me. That's not why you're down in that
I
area.
understand that as well.
So it's a different feel, and I think that,
3 meters is a long way.
yeah, that's 10 feet from the property line. And there's additional,
So not to get into a debate, but actually you do not have the floor, so I'm going to call you out of order, sorry. I'm going to pass the floor to, I think you had an additional question?
Mine is in the same regards. I'm quite on the same page with Don here with the amount of variance requested for this specific build is in every direction. And I genuinely feel there has to be some,
The house from the garage to the road, that's, we're bringing that back to 50 meters.
well, that's a notch.
That's some non-issue.
It's the shot.
15 meters will be applied.
and that's great. That makes a big difference. Then the house has no issue in regards because next door property owner has oodles of space there for drainage, for everything.
We discussed this, I discussed it yesterday with the craftsman.
Is it an option to adjust the size of the building to accommodate that angled lot?
Of which building? The
The
shop?
shop.
The shop.
Yeah, going from a square to like an angled corner to accommodate the utility right away.
Your answer.
I know if I was building a shop, I wouldn't.
It's
want to have it quite
physically,
comfortable.
it's physically possible. That's not an issue. Whether that's something.
I'm also concerned with stuff like this where it sets precedent for future builds,
Yeah, so
giving this much movement
that much
on
of
the
a,
bylaw.
that much of a variance. So yeah, I mean, I guess points that I would bring forward when I was reading this application initially is, this is one of the smaller lots. Certainly, this was a recent subdivision, if I recall correctly. So you are limited to this being smaller, and therefore you're just going to have to deal with smaller options. I do think that the setback, the current setback, the suggested setback on the shop is too small. I would be fine with not insisting that it be the full 6. I think I would agree with Member Gullickson that perhaps a 4.5, I think you had mentioned, would be a reasonable variance, given that this is a smaller size. And so I think that maybe we can give a bit of wiggle room, but 3 is just not acceptable. And the fact that this is the district that it is, and these are the rules for a reason, and you can't really compare these against a residential area because that's just completely different. And that's why you have different rules for different places. I also agree with the setback from the road, as far as how far back the main house is set as well. Again, it just adds to the congruency through the neighborhood. There's no real good reason to not, honestly. And I'm glad to hear that the applicant is in support of that change. So thank you for that. With regards to the south side, I do hum and haw a little bit about that one again, for the very same reason that I do for the north boundary. Yes, you have a situation where the property next door has room to, absorb that. But I also have to ask, is that really fair to be asking neighboring properties to absorb that for you? Do you understand what I mean? Sorry. I don't mean to sound harsh, but that is, I think, the role of NPC is to try and balance, what you want to develop on a property, and that's any property, versus the burden then that's placed on the neighborhood, whatever the perceived burden is. So but I am hearing from my commission members that they are maybe not as concerned with that one. And so again, we also had a situation where I believe the property owner of the neighboring property owner is in support of the application. Did I understand that correctly? So if they themselves don't have an issue with it, then I guess it seems maybe a little bit over the top for me to then therefore have an issue. So what I guess the long about way of saying that I'm okay with the south boundary then. But I would not support this application without that north boundary being adjusted, the variance being reduced to 4.5. And again, that just reflect that we have agreed that that east side will be pushed back to better match the existing neighborhood. Those are my thoughts on the situation. Do we have any further questions from members of the commission?
No, those are my.
Well, unless administration has anything to point out, I guess I would be willing to entertain a motion. Is there anything further that we need to be aware of?
Just, I believe I would like to see that.
Oh, yes, sorry, yes.
Yeah, I would like to touch on that report by. Right now we have some pretty, we have nice coniferous trees that are falling off that property line, back of our yard. And currently those trees are at about 3 meters from the base of the tree already. And they're only at half height. And those trees are significantly tall. They're about 30 feet tall already. And so expectedly, they should grow to about twice that size. And in our neighborhood, initially we started with aspens, and as they mature and die off, these coniferous trees are pretty between. And then what happens is they need up to 25 to 40 feet in diameter in order to flourish. If we go within those boundaries, less than 6 meters, with impact the growth of those trees, and the construction of the building probably would cause them to perish. The building itself is at top 29 or 28 feet high, so that would impact all of these trees directly against that edge. The shop is bigger than most of the shops on the property in the area. I myself, I support having a big shop, but on a lot that size is a little bit overbuilding. That very first pole at the front of the shop actually comes within just a few meters of our patio and our outside space. And I had moved to this division simply because we did have those ones between the divisions. Mostly for the industrial piece too, because you can still use it for industrial. So even though the new owners may be just using it for storage and housing, future owners could be using it for more higher traffic, uses. And if that happens, then our living space on the backyard impacted. Most of the buildings are offset, the houses are offset to give that space between different divisions. So there is one new build that I looked at this morning that is closer. It doesn't have 6 meter, it's only 3, but it's 2 garages or 2 shops that meet. There is no social privacy area.
Trees themselves, they are literally on the property line, or are they slightly on one side or the other? Yeah, pretty much. If you have an answer to that question.
Yes, I was the first one to live in the subdivision, and the trees have gotten down the property line with the gentleman between fellow that subdivided this and people that live in the house that they bought. But it was planned on.
But a gentleman's agreement.
Yeah.
I guess, and I won't speak for my commission members, but I guess my issue with that is it's not really a fence per se. It is on the property line. So one or the other doesn't have ownership, I guess, of it. It's within the property, either property owner's ability to plant more trees. Honestly, that's why you have the area that you have. I'm a little bit hesitant. Again, that's just me. I'm a little bit hesitant to say that thou shalt keep a tree fence between the two of you and say that that's how it's going to go in perpetuity. I don't know if that this body is appropriate to say that that must be the case when all you're really required to have is a property line. We're not even requiring you to have a fence at all, I believe. So that's slightly problematic for me. I feel like that might be overstepping our ability. Yes.
In the original development, we had to provide screening, we had to plant trees, screen our backyards. Yeah. As you can see down in the property line, it's like that. See all the property lines, we all had trees in there. To shield our residents or our shops from the heat. This road, if you want to move by there. So all the trees. Where this way, all the way in our block.
Yeah, no, I see, sir. So question for administration, the city said that you shall plant trees, or they just required screening of?
We said that we had to provide screening, shrubbery.
So our land use bylaw has changed since then, and so now I can say something like, and shall provide appropriate screening for their industrial use.
And it does not dictate as to what, that would be member Gallison.
Oh, thank you, Chair Hips. I mean, the trees are lovely. I mean, when I looked at them today, and they're great, it'd be nice to save as many as possible. But I mean, all the branches that are onto that property could be cut off by the land. I mean, they have control of their property at that point, the same as you do. And you can trim the tree as whichever you like on your side of the property. So the trees, to me, are not so much the issue as the additional space and trying to accommodate, you know, this lot and maintain the same continuity for the whole area. And I do feel that it's a reasonable, to go to 4.5, I think is a reasonable number to get back from that. It'd be nice to save those trees, but really, if they wanted to, they could cut all the branches that are on it. And that would be a shame, but they certainly could do that.
Michael, with
I have
that,
one more question. So
right,
if they're allowed to build 30% on their shop, can I add my building?
I would direct that question to administration.
If you set a precedent here, can I add 30% on their property?
It's just some developments.
Yeah, like our neighbors across the street, we did apply for variances on garage back to home, and a lot of people for this significant variance. This is pretty significant for the city to consider of that magnitude. On both sides. And I would take that into consideration in terms of cost. If you do allow them to take anything,
So you,
then you might actually have that happen continually, and it's one hard to turn.
I would say that we do quite often allow variances. They are not unfortunately precedent setting, other than to say that they have been done, but we're not required to, because it's been done one time, it's always going to be allowed going forward. That being said, I mean, yes, if you start doing variances all the time, then, but I mean, there's still rules to show that there are rules and there are certain standards. And when people deviate from those standards, that's why they have to come before this body and then present. And they have to make a case along with administration as to why those variances should be granted. I would say this body largely tries to accommodate applications, but we certainly have either turned down applications or adjusted them so that, say, variances were smaller, et cetera, because again, it is a balance between being able to be a community that allows you to do things, but also not be overly burdensome on neighbors in particular, as well as the neighborhood, because of course we deal with a large variety of permit applications here, whether it's this type of thing or home occupations or whatnot. So I guess at this point in time, we don't have a motion on the floor, but if we were to, I expect there's going to be changes to what has been brought forward. I don't know, Member Gullickson, if you're still thinking 4.5,
I'm thinking,
or if you're thinking perhaps 5, for example, but or Member now, I can't make the motion, so.
no, you can. Can we check with the, like, I agree, well, I think the 4.5 is reasonable.
I have one more question. When you're building that close to the property line, you don't have to build like a structural on that one. Fire and smoke. That was brought to our attention.
I would think, well, I don't know that for sure, but I would think it depends on the usage of the building, right?
Just asking the question.
Yeah, I think,
They said outside of the boundaries, I have a special involved.
Through to the chair, there is conditions requiring building permits, so that fire safety and building code will be addressed at that time.
Yeah, I was literally going to bring that to attention. So that is covered, as in we don't specify that in the conditions here, but the condition is that any building will meet, the current codes, et cetera, et cetera. So if that is a special requirement, because of the proximity, then that would be covered under the building permits, et cetera. Yeah. The same inspections would happen regardless whether this is this case or a typical residence or whatever the case may be. So those will factor in, and I can't tell you what those are. That's outside of the purview of this, other than us requiring that happens.
I have a question, planning, or to Crystal possibly, see. If we make it a 4.5 setback, what would the percentages be then?
Still not technically a variance, so we would request a revised site plan to reflect the 4.5 meters between the north edge of the shop and then the property boundary. And then we would ask the designer to shift the building appropriately, and then we would to determine how much further east the building would have to move in order to remain off of that 9.5 meter right of way.
So if we made our motion here regarding that, we would just say a side yard setback of 4.5 meters.
Required, yes, so it might even be an additional condition.
Yes, because the 15 meters already in the
So
conditions, so it would just literally be, rather than it saying 3.6 meters, then it would say 4.5 meters. Is that what you're proposing?
yeah, which would be 4.5 meters setback.
And then the allowable height is not an issue either any longer. Is that now struck?
I have one source that. In this particular lot, it's never been brought up to grade. There is also a flood zone in front fringe. This lot doesn't have to be affected by that flood fringe, but it was never brought up to grade at the time of construction of this area. So that lot has a tendency to not carry flood frequently. There is the former owner had put some pump in the front to pump out the water that happens in that lot in particular. So just in terms of pipe building and sloping of the lot in regards to the vegetation, because if there is significant slope that's less than that 50 meters, we could have significant water flow in there that would also cause damage to the but there is is Washington, the new owners, as well as, game development, is there's no real easy way to have the drainage dealt with around that lot at this point. And so there is a concern that, if they don't have proper drainage, that it will affect, the science and trees and other things. You can tell it on the picture, but it's almost 3 feet lower than the street.
So condition 6, I see refers to landscape elevation and drainage patterns. Would that be the condition that would be addressing that, or?
So that condition is, speaks to when we have a lot grading plan that's been approved by the city, then during the implementation, they have to be within 100 millimeters of what is on the design of the lot grading plan.
So there is one at this time, or there
We
isn't?
do not have a lot grading plan yet.
So that would be something that would be provided as part of the conditions. Yes. So that should be, what I guess my question is, that should be addressed then, drainage issues
Yes.
under that condition.
Yeah, so 5 and 6 go together.
5 and 6. Oh, yes.
First part is that they have an approved lot grading plan, the second part is to implement it within that margin there.
Member Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair Hibbs. I'll make that motion then, that the Municipal Planning Commission approve a detached dwelling with a side yard setback of 4.5 meters, an industrial shop with, we don't need height variance,
No,
sorry,
just the discretionary.
and a discretionary use warehouse occupancy be located at 4306 45th Street, Lot 23, Block 1, Plan 212-01379, correct? Zoned R1, RL1 residential light industrial. Or I guess that's LI.
LI. With the following 27.
27 conditions, yeah.
Not-
I'm just going to check the
Yes.
number. Yeah, with the following 27 conditions.
Just a point of clarification, Madam Chair. To the 4.5 meter setback is to the north.
To the north.
Yes.
The south one is not addressed in this.
Just the 4.5.
Yeah.
Didn't know what you wanted. That.
So specified to the north. Yeah, that probably, just for clarification, would probably be, would that be
Yes.
acceptable? All right, are you clear on what the motion is?
Yeah.
Just because we want you to a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. thank you.
Right now, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the process, but is there, you know, you guys voting this work as well as this right next to this back to the state, or do I, you know?
So Municipal Planning Commission has a motion before, we'll vote on that, depending on how it goes. All decisions of MPC are appealable, so there is another level that you can go to. I would speak with administration more about that. But yeah, like at this point, once we have made a decision, whether it's for or against, that will conclude our business here. Yes,
Sorry, we need to clarify this motion just one more time.
okay.
Just to clarify, the Municipal Planning Commission is approving a detached dwelling with the house with a side yard setback, which is the one to the south. 3.6 meter, 60% variance
on the south.
on the south, because it is 2.4 meters from the south property boundary. So we are looking at that side yard setback and an industrial shop setback to a minimum of 4.5 meters from the north property boundary. Which is not a variance, but it's specifying that we're requiring the setback to be.
Okay,
And discretionary variance.
okay.
Thank you.
So that initial part of the resolution was regarding
The house.
outside. Okay, now we're on top.
Yeah, we got it.
And administration, I would just ask too, just for clarification before we go ahead and vote, decisions at this body, so whether we approve or not allow a decision, those decisions are typically appealable, is that correct? And so that would be to another body. It doesn't come back to MPC, it comes to a separate body. Just wanted to make sure that I had that correct before I said that and it was in error. Is that?
That's correct, Madam Chair. So it would be appealable to the subdivision development appeal board. And anyone affected can appeal. The applicant can appeal any of the conditions or the decision. The neighbors can appeal. on the discretionary use.
Yeah, it is not this commission that hears it again. It's completely separate people. It's a separate board altogether. So, and that's
And there will be information in the decision letter of how.
how to do that. Yeah. Okay. All right, unless I have any further information before we call a vote, have any further questions or concerns before a vote from members of the commission? All right. So all those in favor of the motion as put forward? And that is unanimous. So yes, information will be followed up then with the property owners. And if anybody else has questions, again, just approach administration and they can give you the information that you require. Nothing moves ahead right away. There's an appeal period. So just,
How long is that period? Because honestly, you know, to be in the farm and communication, that's, I have to spend a lot of time. How much time do you have to deal and, you know, how much scope of this?
administration.
The decision will be research more. And then if the lady wanted to. Well, so when we know, like, if there is a delay, then we have to resolve the role that one day delay, we can find moving. So because we advertise in the paper. And there is a fee. There is a finance. All of that information, I'm have to stay out.
The appeal period is going to end at 4:30 p.m. on August 5th. So next week, there will be a sign posted on the property with that information. There will be letters sent out, and it will be on the city's website.
So just a question too, is this, what's the surviving? Is that something that should have been sent out to the neighbors? Is it some notification?
That was,
It would have, it should have been sent, but we can discuss that after. That's decision made. So that was.
Yeah, I like, I think that's communication.
Okay, so that concludes the business on that item. We're going to move on in our agenda. You're welcome to remain until after if you wish to speak with administration after the meeting, or you can call them or meet with them at a later date. But just so you know that we are going to move on now. So I have new business, virtual and in-person MPC meetings.
thank you. I just wanted to update the commission and any of the public watching that obviously we're back in person. For forward, meetings will be held in person at this location until the council chambers are renovated at City Hall. But the public can still attend virtually. So thank you to our IT department that has that still going. They just, if they're not feeling comfortable coming in person, we will continue to offer until the end of the summer, both in person and virtual opportunity. And then providing that nothing changes with the COVID protocols, it will be back to Tuesday.
That's good that you can accommodate both, because yes, I mean, things are changing, but not everybody's moving at the same speed. So that's good to have the option. Is there any questions on that item from members of the commission? No? All right. All right, that takes care of that one then. And then, so our last order of business then is the next MPC meeting. July 21st, yes, I was gonna say not, clearly not 7th. And do we have applications at this time that I think are already in the hopper? Okay, so we should expect to mark that on our calendars as needing to be here. Are either of you aware that you wouldn't be able to?
Should be here,
No.
probably.
So at least we'll have the three, we'll have four. I'll be here as well, so I'm sure Tracy will be back by then as well. So. All right, so then that just leads us to our last motion then of the meeting. Member Nauchin moves to adjourn, and we are at 5:55. That was longer than I was expecting. So all those in favor? And meeting adjourned.